One more time for Henry, everyone. Let him hear it. So hello, my name is Taylor Ruddle. This is a comedy show called Ruddzilla. It is about 3 years I spent in Japan and some misadventures I ended up in due to my own hubris. So we'll get to that a little bit later on, but I'll give you a little bit of backstory about myself. So first, I want to tell you about this pair of shorts I bought. They're kind of a paradox. I bought them in the size 5XL, but the brand name was Active Intent. Right? I'm not the only one that sees something weird with that. I don't feel like you're allowed to sell 5XL shorts if your brand name is Active Intent. It'd be like me opening a brand of condoms and calling it the Celibate's Choice. or opening a brand of tequila and calling it A Quiet Night In. It's just not on the cards, is it? So I'll give you a little bit of backstory about myself before I moved to Japan. So I'm from a little town called Dunsandel. Has anyone heard of this place before?
Yeah.
Are you from as well?
Mason.
That's not the same thing, but pretty close. Yeah, we'll do that. So my parents moved around quite a bit, and they changed jobs every couple of years. And I'll tell you what they did, and you'll agree with me that they become like increasingly suspicious the more they go on. So when I was born, they owned a pig farm. Then they moved on to like being home cleaners, and then after that they moved on to owning like a taxi company. Doesn't that just seem like people who are like learning to kill someone, move the body, clean up the crime scene, and then feed the body to pigs to get rid of it, right? Especially when you're moving around a lot. That seemed quite suspicious to me at the time. But we settled in Dunsandel for a while, and they lived there for the longest. It was at the pig farm, and paint the picture of what Dunsandel was like if you're not sure. Obviously, we've got someone from Meth in here, but so I go and visit every few years to catch up with my old friends. And one year I went back and I noticed there were two guys that had their arm in a sling, and I kind of said, "What's that all about?" And they go to tell me the story, but they started off the story by saying, "Now, bear with us, but it sounded like a good idea at the time," which is a great start to a story, you know. The best stories in your life start off with that. What they had done is they had tried to attempt a drive-by high five. Yeah, which is exactly what you think it is. There was one guy stood on Main Street, stuck his arm up, another guy up the road in a modified Skyline R34 with the door that doesn't match the rest of the car, you know the one. And he basically just planted his boot, went along, stuck his arm out, and they did the high five and broke both of their wrists. And I was kind of like, well, why did that seem like a good idea at the time? And he dropped one of my favorite phrases ever, which he said, "Look, mate, sometimes you just got to bite down, grip the steering wheel, and put your foot down and see what happens," which is it's a way of living your life with reckless abandon that I kind of admired in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a little bit like, because I always try to live things very safe. I try to play things safe. So to see this this reckless abandon was very, very inspiring to me. As you can imagine, a lot of alcohol out in Dunsandel. It was a big thing during the 90s, which was never really my thing. And this is a tough country not to drink in. Is there any other non-drinkers in the crowd tonight? Just a couple of people? Nice, yeah. Right in the centre, that's great. What's tough about this country is you tell people you don't drink, and then they just like try to pressure you to drink. And I've always found it hard to say no to people. So I discovered a little trick that I could kind of sidestep around it. And so whenever someone would ask me, "Do you drink, Taylor?" I would just go, "No, not anymore." And then I'd hit them with a real 1,000-yard stare. And it made it look like I used to have a drinking problem, and that was kind of the point. They would leave it alone for some reason. And like, you guys can all use this trick if you want. Like, you know when people pester you at the supermarket to like donate to charity or something? If they say, "Excuse me, sir, do you donate to charity?" Just go, "No, not anymore." And the conversation ends real quick. It's great. It's a fantastic trick you can take away. You got to be careful though, because you can't use it too much. Like if I'm on a road trip, my friend's like, "Hey Taylor, do you still need to go to the toilet?" "No, not anymore." Takes on a bit of a sinister edge there, doesn't it? And so the other thing that was abundant out there as well as alcohol was drugs. That was a big thing there. And people are often surprised to learn that I don't do drugs. Like, I tend to live the lifestyle of a stoner. I watch a lot of cartoons and eat a lot of cereal, but like, I'm doing a drug-free version of that lifestyle, I guess. And but there was some people suggested a drug to me that they thought I might enjoy, and that drug was magic mushrooms. Woo! And I was like, that involves eating. I think I could quite get into that. I'm real frugal as well, so it kind of felt like I was fulfilling two needs there, the drugs and the food. I felt like that made good economical sense to try magic mushrooms. So I ended up getting supplied with a bag of these things, and like I said, I'm very sheltered. I'm not very knowledgeable in the ways of the world. So I thought you had to you'd use them like regular mushrooms in food. So I thought, I'll make a pizza and I'll put the magic mushrooms on the pizza, and that'll be a great way to take them. So I ended up going into my kitchen and I spread out the dough, I put the sauce on it, I made like a whole thing with some onions, some cheese, peppers, and little tomatoes and stuff like that. And I thought, okay, that's great, and put it in the oven. And then I thought I should watch a movie, because I've heard that's quite a good experience when you're doing drugs, is to put on a movie. So I put on The Iron Giant. Does anyone remember this movie? Yeah. Man, that's a sad movie when you're sober. Like, imagine what that movie's like when you're on magic mushrooms. So I remember just being inspired by the end of the movie when the giant, he flies into that rocket and he saves the whole town of people. Like, you thought you'd cry when you see that sober. I was weeping openly. It really hit me in the stomach. And up until that point, I'd sort of just been kind of going through the motions of life. I was just working at a pizza shop. That's why I knew how to make the pizza, and hadn't really done anything at all. So I just felt like after this whole session of magic mushrooms and crying at the Iron Giant, I thought, man, I got to do something with my life. I really got to get out there more. I got to go do something. And then I went back into the kitchen and I realized I never put the mushrooms on the pizza. That's just a really powerful, transformative movie. Give it a try if you have the means. I recommend it. And so that was kind of the seed that planted. And I thought, okay, I need to go do something. I need to go do something crazy. I need to get out there and live my life. So that was when I decided to move to Japan. And just a quick show of hands. Has anybody been before? Just raise a few people. Did you like it?
No.
No? Okay, great. You came to the wrong show there. That's going to be basically the rest of the show is just Japan stuff. So I'll tell you a little bit about what my kind of experience was like there. The reason I called the show Ruddzilla is because I felt like Godzilla and myself probably had a similar experience of first getting to Japan, because he's not from Japan, he's from the ocean. And I feel like Godzilla and myself were looking around and we're thinking, oh man, everybody's so small here. Nobody understands what I'm saying to them. Oh, I stepped on another child. Just normal things like that me and Godzilla both were doing. You know how it is, guys. One of my favorite things to do actually was when I would run into Australians over there, and it would be great because we're both in this foreign land where we sort of don't speak the language, and they would see me and they would hear a little bit of the accent, and they would come over and I'd be like, oh, g'day Shagger, you from Sydney, are you? And then I would just get to see the light leave their eyes when I said, oh no, from Christchurch, New Zealand. They were just so disappointed. It was one of my little tiny joys over there was watching the light leave their eyes when they realised it wasn't a friend, it was in fact an enemy. The one thing that used to get me was the language is so different. You know how we can listen to French or something, and you can hear you just listen for the words that you understand. Hear a French person be just oh, it's just we send it pas egg McMuffin. You know what I mean? You hear that kind of. You're like, okay, I get the gist of what he's talking about. It's great. I'm with you. But just the struggle of trying to understand Japanese and English. There's no crossover whatsoever there, and it was I couldn't even understand how they didn't get the gist of what I was saying. It was one of the most frustrating things out there. But I did end up learning Japanese. We'll get to that later in the story. What's the other thing I just learned this recently. There's a big difference between New Zealand and Japan. So when you go over there and you go into a cafe, people will just put their laptops and stuff at a desk as to reserve it. Can you imagine trying to do that here? It would be gone by the time you get back, right? And I went to a cafe there with a friend. She placed her laptop down and I was like, what are you doing? And I could see all the other Japanese people in the crowd looking at me like I was the crazy one for suggesting this. And so the reason I know this is today is because I just bought a bicycle here in New Zealand, and it doesn't have a kickstand on it. And I thought that was like really weird because in Japan they all have kickstands on them. And my flatmate was saying, he's like, well, you know, it's pretty normal here to not have a kickstand on it. It's because in New Zealand you want to lock your bike whenever you leave it around. So there's no situation you're just going to leave it in the middle of the, you know, you're always going to have it leaned up against something. There's this one thing, I was real surprised at how, like, not accepting as such, but like, you know, like, there's this whole thing at the moment going on with cultural appropriation where people say, like, you shouldn't, like, wear the ceremonial clothes of, like, other people's cultures and stuff like that. Like, that was not my experience at all over there. They would see me, and, like, nothing would make Japanese people happier than to dress me up, and they'd see big old white boy, and they think, oh, we can do all sorts of stuff with him. And there's this question, Japanese dudes, when they see a foreign guy, they have this one question they ask you every single time, and like without fail, you knew it was coming in a sentence because they kind of looked to the left and the right when they were going to ask you it. And so you go through stuff, you know, how long have you been in Japan, how you going, that kind of thing, and then they'd be like, you fuck any Japanese girls while you're here? Every single time that was the question they wanted you to ask. And I always expected it to be a little bit of like, they were trying to trick me into being like, oh yeah, and then they like beat me up, you know, like I was expecting it to be like a negative response, but it was like the complete opposite. They were like, yeah, get after it, like, you like, look at them, they're amazing, you know, you should really like, it was like they were recommending like, oh, when you go to Japan, you know, you have to try the food, you take in the scenery, you fuck the women. Like that was the attitude that it felt like. It was a real pride that they had to it. And so yeah, just every single, like I got, you know, any typical conversation, you know, he says, you know, how you doing? Where are you from? And I'd say New Zealand. And so how long you been in Japan for? I'd say a couple of weeks. And then he'd be like, you fucking girls while you're here? And I'd be like, no, I just got here. And they'd be like, all right, so anyway, the reason I pulled you over today, sir, is because you're doing 50 in a school zone. So before I move on to I've got these 3 stories for you today that is kind of like me. I bring it on myself for my hubris. But before we get into that, does anyone have any questions they want to know about Japan? Like, just we might use this on the show, we might not.
What was your favourite food while you were there?
My favourite. Yeah. Do you know? So this is the weird thing. Food. We'll come back to that in a little bit. But I'd say ramen. It's not a funny answer. Like, I don't know. You like ramen? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, cool. Any other questions? I like how the audience's first response was to be like, look at me and be like, oh, he'll know about food for sure. What do you got?
Did you learn to speak the language?
I did, and that's a bit, I'll do this after. So the first 3 stories are very much because I didn't speak the language, and then, so yeah, I did end up speaking the language, yeah. Anyone else?
Well, you're a rugby player.
Do you know, at least once a week I got asked to join someone's rugby team over there. They heard New Zealand, and the 2 things were, can you do a haka for us, and can you come and join my Saturday rugby team? That was the most.
Tell them you're a halfback.
It's not the first time I've heard it before. Do I have a halfback kind of look to me?
Yeah, absolutely.
What does a halfback do?
Well, half of one thing and something else of the other.
You can tell I don't play sports at all, eh? Like just, oh really? Yeah, okay. There's the hand over there.
Did you go snowboarding?
No, can you imagine me I'd turn into a bloody snowboarder. Did you go, are you a snowboarder?
Yeah, I've been to Japan.
Do you reckon I should give it a go?
Yeah.
I'll give it a go.
Down pretty fast.
Yeah, I'd get a lot of speed up, wouldn't I? Okay, yeah.
Did you end up fucking a Japanese girl?
It's gonna be fun.
Believe it or not, I did. Was that dude? Well, that's staying in the special for sure. We'll move on then. So, what else we got? I'll tell you these 3 stories that happened to me just because of my own sort of heaps. So, like, I was inspired by the Iron Giant. I wanted to get out there and I wanted to like kind of live my life a bit more. So the first one here is, you know, I had to get a job because, you know, you need money and stuff. And a real common thing that white people do over there is they become English teachers. Apparently it's very easy. You don't need any qualifications. You just need to basically look like me. And they're like, yep, that's your credentials right there. And so I was living in like a share house the guy at my share house set me up with like an interview at a local school. And we go along, and I meet the guy who was interviewing me. He's a pretty normal dude. He was like mid-30s, Japanese dude, but he spoke pretty decent English, so we could kind of communicate all right. We go and sit down, and he says to me, "All right, Taylor, so nice to meet you and all that. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your work history back in New Zealand?" And this was the moment that I thought, like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna come up with something better than a pizza guy here. I'm gonna lie, and I don't normally lie, so this was a big moment for me. So I said to him, I used to work, I worked for 4 years in the AV industry. And so this was the mistake, because I didn't know at the time that AV means something different over in Japan to what it means over here. You're nodding along here. And if you don't know, so over here stands for audio visual, which means doing like, tech and lights and cables and all that kind of thing for like a concert or a performance. Over in Japan, AV stands for adult video. Yeah, so just to recap, trying to get a job as an educator, just told the guy interviewing me that I did porn for 4 years, so things are off to a great start. And to this man's credit, he didn't immediately end the interview. He soldiered on. Like if I shut my eyes now, I can still see the several emotions that he flicked through really quickly. Like first it was confusion, then it was horror, and then he had this sort of weird kind of acceptance on his face. And then I saw a little glint of curiosity in his eyes. I was like, okay. And so he says to me, oh, okay. That's the first time I've heard that in one of these interviews. Is that sort of thing normal back in New Zealand? Now remember, I don't know the distinction, and I'm just trying to gas myself up. I'm trying to say things that sound good in an interview, so I was like, oh yeah, well everyone's done a little bit of AV. Around the house maybe, just not professionally like me. And he was like, well, how did you get into it professionally? And I was like, it's the family business. Mum and Dad met during a job. She had to retire pretty soon after because she got pregnant. When I was 13, my dad reluctantly showed me some of the basics. And then when I was 14, we got the internet at home and I figured the rest out for myself. Started my school's first ever AV club when I was 16, some good memories there. And graduated at 18. One day, someone didn't turn up for work, there was a slot that needed filling, and I went to work with Dad, and the rest is history, as they say. And he was like, oh, okay. You enjoyed this line of work then? And I was like, oh yeah, it was good. You get to experience meet a lot of people, experience a lot of interesting workplaces. And he got a little nervous there, and he was like, oh, you didn't do any AV like at an actual school, did you? Because that could be like a bit of a conflict of interest there. And I know exactly as my thoughts, so I had to think quickly, and I was like, no. I used to do AV in places like hospitals, churches, and a couple of retirement homes. And he was like, oh, okay, that's all right. And he said, well, so why did you leave? I mean, it sounded like things were working out all right for you. It's an interesting career to do there. And I said, well, the money's not great, and it's harder on your body than you might think. There's a lot of crawling around on your hands and knees and heavy lifting involved. It's, there's only so much of your life you want to spend doing that kind of work for that kind of money. And he was like, oh yeah, I can understand that. And then he was like, got to be honest with you, Taylor, you're probably not the right man for this job. But I've had a good time talking to you, so why don't you let me walk you out to the street? So I'm disappointed, but I kind of understand. I don't think I'd be a very good teacher. And so we're walking along the hallway, and it's just kind of quiet for a second. And then just before we get to the doors, he stopped me and he was like, look, just before you go, you said the money wasn't great and it was hard on your body, but I mean, man, you must have had some good memories, right? You must have worked with a lot of really beautiful women during your time in the industry. And I went, it was usually just me and like 3 other guys. Whenever I'm doing that joke at open mic, I love doing shit where the shows where the doors are locked, because people would come in halfway through that joke and it just sounded like I used to be a gay porn star and it hadn't worked out for me, so I'm giving comedy a try. So we're filming it tonight. I think I'm going to upload this clip to Pornhub. I think I'll call the clip "Sweaty White Boy Satisfies Whole Room of People Just Using His Mouth." That'll get some hits on that. So, in about 6 months, when you get home, just go to Pornhub and search Taylor Ruddle comedy. We'll be up there, I imagine. So that was my first sin, lying. If there's a lesson to be taken from the show, is don't lie in job interviews, folks, because it can be kind of sticky. I tell you what, it kind of worked out for me, because after that job, I went for another job interview, and it was just at a video games company, and we had pretty much the exact same interview leading up to that point, except when I told him the AV thing, he just laughed, and he was like, "Oh, you'll be a popular guy around here," and then I got the job, so I guess it kind of works out in the end. So that was the first story. My second story is from a Halloween night that we had. Do you guys like Halloween? Yeah, it's not really big in New Zealand. It's massive in Japan though. There's nothing. If you're going to go like for a holiday, I highly recommend you go around Halloween time, because you'll see some crazy like street parties and that kind of thing. So there's a little bit more of my backstory. There's a street where I lived in Fukuoka, and it's called Fukuoka, and this was where like all the like foreigner-owned nightclubs and pubs and stuff were on this street, Fukuoka. And so like, that was where we all used to go, because they all spoke English and we could hang out and stuff. And so naturally, if you're a Japanese person that has like white fever, and you want to take a foreigner home for the evening, this is where you go. You go to Fukuoka. Now, I cannot make this up. Fukuoka literally translates to street of parental disappointment. 100% true. You can Google it later. It's quite apt as well, because the first ever comedy club I started was on Fukuoka. So, I guess that's on brand for them. The comedy club was right next to the vasectomy clinic, and the store that sells postcards that say, "I won't be home for Christmas again this year." Street of parental disappointment. Sorry, there's a little dive for you guys. I feel like you went with me on that one there. So I'll tell you the rest of the story. So there's this, every Halloween they do this big, I mean, it might be different now from COVID, but at the time they did these massive street, Halloween parties. And the only thing I can really describe it as is like, if you've ever seen the Disney parade, it looked a lot like that, but there's like fake blood everywhere. So I guess it's like the Disney parade during a zombie apocalypse. That's kind of that's the vibe of the street during Halloween time. And so this one year we were going to a Halloween party. It had all been sort of organised by a friend of a friend. And I thought, well, I'm in Japan, so I'm going to dress up as a character from Japanese media. So I dressed up as a character called Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z. There's a few people nodding, but the rest of you looking at me confused. So all you need to know about this character is he's like a muscular green alien with like pointy ears and little feelers on his forehead. So I'm painted up all green as that. Just picture me painted up as that. That's all you need for the rest of the story. And so I'm going to this party, walking along the street of parental disappointment, and these two kids stop me and they run up and they want to take a photo with me. And so we take the photo. And they're telling me they were big fans of my work, like they've seen all my movies, and they're really excited to meet me, and so I'm feeling pretty cool about myself. And then they run off, and one of them shouts back at me, "Thanks for the photo, Shrek!" It's pretty, can be grim out there at times if you're a bigger guy on Halloween. But, there's some silver linings to it, like if anyone's booking a children's birthday party this weekend, I'm available for bookings. There's a weird side effect, is when you look like Shrek, millennial women find you irresistible, but they don't know why. So this works out quite well for me. Like if I see like a wedding ring tan line, and then a little Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows tattoo on the inside of her wrist, the little triangle, that's my cue to go and introduce myself. And I just walk up and I'm like, "I don't suppose you believe in happily ever afters, do you?" Works most of the time. I tell you, one time I did it, and she had the tattoo, I did the line, and she was like, "Sorry dude, but I'm looking for Princess Fiona too, if you know what I mean." So, 50-50. Anyway, we'll get back to the story. And so we arrived at the Halloween party, and my friend had set up kind of like a double date with these two Japanese ladies. And they didn't really speak any English. I didn't speak any Japanese, but my friend did. So he was kind of the go-between for us. And like, he's a good friend. He was trying really hard to wingman for me. So he's like rattling off all this Japanese with these two. Like, I have no idea what he's saying. And that's the problem with wingmanning, is like, I don't know what lies I'm supposed to be keeping up with, you know what I mean? You're gassing your friend up. And so he's rabbiting away, talking to them. And whatever he said must have worked, because one of them started playing like footsies with me under the table. So whatever he said was working. And we're sort of attempting to communicate, the three of us. And then the one that was playing footsie with me stands up and she just goes, "It's noodle time." And I thought that was a euphemism. It wasn't. But that's okay, because I like noodles, so I was down to go get noodles. And so we get up from this bar, and we're walking down on the street, and it was just me and her walking next to each other. We're attempting to communicate with each other. And she's asking me questions in sort of like broken English. And she asked me this one question. She says, "What's your favorite type of umma?" And I thought she was saying uma, which is the Japanese word for horse. So I gave her an honest answer. I was like, "Oh, you know, strong back, good teeth, nice tail, you know." And she's going, no, umma. And I was like, "Oh, you're saying woman. What's your favorite type of woman?" And I was like, wow, same answer really, isn't it? Strong back, good teeth, nice tail. Like, well, what else do you want in a gal, really? And so we're walking along, and she's a little bit tipsy, I think, because she's sort of staggering. She's using my arm to steady herself. And this is the weird thing, is like, people keep, like, she's basically clinging on to me, and people keep coming up to her and asking if I was bothering her. And it's like, I'm not doing anything. What's going on here? So then we get to this noodle place, and this is where the chaos really unfolded, is because she started trying to, you know, couples will like feed each other. Like you could do it with like little bite size. You can do it with pizza, or you can do it with a small little piece. So she's trying to feed me like a couple like ramen with chopsticks. It's like soup and everything. And like, I don't know if you've ever seen a drunk Japanese person trying to use chopsticks before, but it looks a lot like a sober white person trying to use chopsticks. And like my level, after about 3 years living there, I'm at the level of tipsy Korean with my chopsticks. And so stuff's just going everywhere. It's splashing, and the guys next to us, big long commuter tables, and so stuff's splashing on the guys next to us. And we eventually kind of get through the evening, and we get up to leave, and I'm just thinking, oh, like, I need to just get her to a train station because she's getting worse and worse. And so we're trying to wrap the evening up, and like just as we're leaving, she like tripped over something and then rolled into a bunch of like signs that were outside on the street and like hit her head on the ground. So like, that's not a good look for me. If people already thought I was bothering her, like now me like carrying her around, you know, it's going to look like the ogre has literally captured the princess in this situation, you know. So we didn't really know what to do, and her friend just started shouting the word help in English, and I'm sure she had more nuance behind it in her head, but that's again not a good look for me. Like just one person on the ground with a head injury, someone else shouting help next to them. And so then, obviously, as you can imagine, a police officer came over to see what was happening. And thankfully, we managed to kind of explain to him like what had happened here. And I think he was a big fan of Shrek, because that kind of got me off a little bit, because he wanted me to record a video on his phone telling his kids they need to go to bed on time. So like somewhere over in Tokyo, there's a police officer that's got a video of me, like, you know, I'm painted green, but I'm starting to sweat, so all the paint's coming. I just look like a raving lunatic, and I'm just like, hey kids, your daddy says you need to go to bed, and if you don't, that'll make me very angry. So, if I ever get cancelled, I assume that footage is going to surface somewhere. That'll be the end of me. And like I said, thankfully it all kind of went about as well as it could. And me and this woman actually ended up dating for a little bit. She ended up becoming my girlfriend over there, because she had a head injury, so she didn't really remember how bad the first date was. So it worked out quite well for me in the end. It was all good. And so we were seeing each other for a bit. So the third story, I don't really know what the lesson is from that one. I guess just get out when you can. I there were many instances that evening I should have like kind of tapped out and gone home, but you know, I was trying to be like a guy who does things, and you know, I don't know why I did that movement. Hey, I'm a guy on the town, I'm doing, I don't know. Jesus. So third story, I'll tell you this third story. And we're at a little festival, these Japanese festivals. And I'd been in the country for about a year at this point, and so my hair was probably a bit longer than it is now. And for some dumb reason, I was too nervous to go to a hairdresser, because I thought I didn't speak enough of the language to like accurately like I struggle to get a hairdresser here to like give me a haircut that I'm happy with. So like I just let it grow, and I used to just tie it up in a top knot the top of my head like that. And like I was saying before, they love dressing up big old white boys like me in like yukatas, which is kind of that samurai looking thing that they wear. So I'm wearing one of these, and I've got my hair up in a top knot, and I'm walking around this festival at night in this little sort of countryside town with my with some of my friends and all that. And what happened was this young couple with a baby walked over to me, just holding the baby out to me. And that's a weird thing to, you know, like, you don't really expect a stranger to just offer you their baby. Like, you assume something's up there. And so I asked, what's going on here? And so what had happened was, my friend tells me there's a tradition in Japan that if a sumo wrestler holds your baby when they're a young baby, like they'll grow up to be big and strong, and like the sumo wrestler will like impart some of their like fortitude and strength and everything like that onto the baby, and it's like a good omen kind of thing. And so I said, oh, they think I'm a sumo wrestler then? My friend's like, yep. And I said, well, tell them I'm not. And so they go back and forth a little bit, and then my friend says to me, he doesn't care, he thinks it's probably close enough. So can you just do it anyway? Yeah, exactly. Someone's in there, just do it. And so this is the third sin I committed. Is I was in a real sort of people-pleasing phase of my life right now. I really, like I said, I found it hard to say no to stop people from pressuring me to drink. So I took this stranger's baby, and we were just looking at the baby. The baby's looking at me, and like, I'm not going to get any hints out of the baby, you know. Like, I don't think he's going to tell me what I'm supposed to do in this situation. Like, I thought babies are pretty clear. They don't like being shaken about. So I thought that's probably not what I'm supposed to do next. Thought I could maybe turn it like a give them like a 360 kind of like a rotisserie chicken or something maybe. That might be like equally magic. I don't know any Latin, you know, like I could do the whole cross thing. So I sat here thinking about this for a minute. And so what I settled on was I just kind of cheersed the baby, like I'm cheersing like a goblet of mulled wine or something. And like this seemed to, like the guy was happy with that. He said thank you, and he took his baby back, and then he wandered off. So then what the problem was, there's another couples started to walk over. They thought, all right, okay, we're gonna get in on this. Like, look at this stallion of a man. We want our kids growing up big and strong like him. And there's this thing. I teach you a little bit of Japanese culture. So like outside restaurants, if you're walking around with your Japanese friends and you see there's a line outside a restaurant, they'll be like, that's a great place there because there's people are willing to line up outside for it. It's like a culture thing. So as you can imagine, a line began to form, like just all these hopeful young couples hoping for a healthy, strong baby. And again, people pleaser. I was in a real people pleasing mode at this point, so I didn't want to like ruin their night. So I just started going through the assembly line and like blessing all these babies. And again, the cheers motion, that seemed to be like, you know, it's a simple ritual, whatever it is. We get through it. And so then what ended up happening is there was just a guy on his own that got to the front of the queue. And so he's like, what's going on here? Like, oh, we're blessing babies. He's like, what did you think you were lining up for? And he just said, oh, I don't know, I just saw a line. And like, I assumed it must have been something good. So I joined the line. And then so like, I was like, what do we do here? Like, this hasn't happened before. And the guy's like, can you bless me? I lift this guy up. So I just kind of grabbed him around the legs and lifted him up for a second. Put him back down, and then he slipped 1,000 yen into my pocket and he walked away. And so we thought, okay, maybe we've got a viable business going on here. And then so like a bunch of people started coming over, and I think they were like organisers of the festival or something like that. And I thought like, oh no, we're gonna get shut down. Like, you know, the fuzz is here. You know what I mean? Like we just figured out. And but actually, they were stoked about it. They were like, oh yeah, and they like set me up with like a little spot and told me to work, put a list of prices up, and like they were taking a cut off the top. And so I don't know what attributes of mine are going to get imparted onto these babies. Like this is about 10 years ago, so like in another maybe like 10 years, are you just going to start seeing like a bunch of terrible stand-up comedians coming out of Japan? McDonald's is going to crush it in that village, right? It's going to be very popular, I think. I feel like I sold them a lemon a little bit, you know what I mean? Like I feel like they were hoping for a sumo wrestler and they just got me, so yeah. I mean, I guess it didn't go badly exactly, but I guess just say no is what I'm trying to, you know, they had to set boundaries with people, like, you know, bless bless the babies, but just be, do a couple and then get out of here. And so like, we were talking about, someone asked if I learned Japanese. So this is the thing, I went to Japanese school, and I ended up, because by this point I've had 3 miscommunications. I think, okay, I really got to figure out this language thing. So I went to language school for a couple of years, and we had some good times there. Like, so the one funny thing from class is there's this thing in Japanese where you have like formal Japanese and informal Japanese. It's called keigo and futsugo, which is like, it's like shopkeepers and stuff will use the really formal stuff. And like if you're talking to like the Queen or something, you'd use the formal, like it's kind of like received pronunciation, I guess, is the closest thing in English. And they were trying to ask us if New Zealand has this kind of like formal, informal thing, and the only thing I could think of was I was like, well, if someone ends a sentence using the word cunt, it's probably informal. Anything else, formal? Does that sound right to you guys? I don't know. That's the only distinction that I could think of. So they ended up teaching me the Japanese word for the sea bomber is manko, which is like, I don't know, if you take nothing else away from the show tonight, you can use that in your day-to-day life.
All right.
You're going to do it too, I can tell. And what else do we learn? So another interesting thing I learned about the language is they have, you're all familiar with Pikachu, I presume? Yeah. So like Pikachu's name comes from, they have these double, like sort of onomatopoeia words, like sound words, like Pika Pika is the one they use for sparkling or flashing, so that's where Pikachu's name comes from. Like Waku Waku means excitement, Goro Goro is like something rolling along. It's that kind of thing. And this is really common. Like if you're going to study Japanese, you're going to use these words like every day. And like, I always hated using them because you have to use them in situations where like there's no, you would assume there's like another more appropriate word, but it's just, it felt like baby talk to me, you know what I mean? Like if I went to the hospital and we were doing a role-playing class and the thing was having a headache. So I was like, what kind of headache do you have? And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, I was just saying my head hurts. And they're like, but what kind of pain is that? And they wanted one of these double onomatopoeia words. And the 2 options you can give them are gun, which is like a pounding kind of headache, or hidi, which is like pins and needles, that kind of thing. And I didn't want to do it because, again, it felt like I was using baby talk. It felt like if I went to the doctor here and he was like, oh, Mr. Ruddle, why don't you tell us about your boo-boo? Is it ouchie-wouchie or hurty-wurty? And I'm like, ouchie-wouchie. And he's like, oh, that's not good. I'm going to go ring up a Wii U and get you to the hospital. That's kind of what it felt like to me, you know what I mean? But, you never want to know when it comes in useful. And we took this test. It was called the Japanese language proficiency test. It's like a big thing if you live there. You kind of need like a qualification from it if you want to work in a company. And my friend said one of the greatest things. We were going there, and he was annoyed that there was no signs in English like telling you how to get to the classrooms. And I was like, I think that's kind of the point of the Japanese language proficiency test, is that we can find our classrooms by reading the signs in Japanese. It just made sense to me. I don't know, I found that funny. The other thing that made me laugh a bit is they asked us what foods we missed from our home country. I can't, like, if you went overseas, what New Zealand cuisine really would you miss? Like, I can't really think of anything.
Feijoas.
Feijoas are very like divisive fruit, aren't they? Like
Japanese.
What's that? No. If you left New Zealand and you went overseas, like what would you miss, kind of thing. The only thing I could think of was Chinese takeaway. Like that was why. That was what I tell people I miss, because like you can get real Chinese food over there, but that's not what I wanted. Do you know what I mean? Like it was. No, it's not right. Statistically, this is Chinese food, and I mean, you wouldn't understand. The other thing is you meet some sort of pretentious people when you're over there. I'm sure people thought I was pretentious at times. We were drinking in this craft beer pub, which, craft beer was a mistake going there, and the bartenders were talking to us. This is like just before I was kind of leaving the country. We were all kind of winding down, and he's asking everyone where they're from. And I heard one of the most pretentious things I've ever heard, which was he asked me where I'm from. I said New Zealand. He asked the guy next to me where I'm from, and the guy went, "I'm a citizen of the world." Right? Doesn't that just make you cringe? And I thought to myself, I was like, nah, I'm not going to let that stand. So I reached out and I grabbed his blonde dreadlocks and I pulled him in real close. And I thought to myself, I've always wanted to say this to a white person before, and I said, no, where are you really from? Turns out he wasn't being pretentious. He was just from America, and he thought it might be kind of dicey to tell people that he was from there. So it's actually kind of a smart move. Do you know what I mean? Like he's playing his cards close to his chest. So he was all right. I apologise. I was in the wrong there. I'll admit that. So yeah, useful thing to use in the future. Do you know what I mean? And so I ended up coming back. Ended up leaving Japan, coming back to New Zealand. And we had this weird experience at the airport. So me and this girl had been dating for a couple of years at this point. We had to have this big tear-filled goodbye because we didn't know if we were going to see each other again. And it's clearly like an emotional moment. And then this American lady taps me on the shoulder and just goes, "Excuse me, can you please take our picture?" And it was like, can you not read the room right now? Like, we are openly crying, having a moment here, and like, you got to get your photo. So again, people pleaser. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna walk over crying. Bunch up a little bit. Okay, now let's do a silly one. Yeah, because I'm still white, so we got to get that in there. And I came back to New Zealand. I couldn't end up getting another visa. That was the big tricky thing. I didn't go to university, so that's one thing. If you want to live there, you need like a university degree. That's the big thing they want for their visas. So I came back to New Zealand. We tried to do the long distance things. Anybody done long distance before? You tried that out? One? All right. No need to brag, guys. So we tried the long distance thing for a bit, and she actually came over to visit once. And that was the last time we saw each other because, you kind of know a relationship's done. But the thing I learned, if you're ever in this situation when you're in a long distance relationship and you haven't seen each other for 6 months, and you're thinking like, all right, I'm gonna really give her, like in the bedroom, I'm gonna give her like the first time after 6 months, you watch a lot of tape, you study, you learn some new tricks, you really get your technique down and everything like that. So we did that, gave her a hell of a show, but that was the wrong thing to do because it just seemed like I'd been having practice with someone. And so she thought I was cheating on her. That wasn't why we broke up. I was hoping that wouldn't get an oh, it's okay. So we ended up splitting up. But just before the end of that, we had this weird experience. So like when you're a guy that looks like me, and you're walking around holding hands with like a really attractive Asian girl, there's like a lot of people have like, they give you this kind of, what's going on there? Like you get a lot of scrutiny, I guess. Like, Japanese dudes love it. They're like, yeah, let it get in. They, as I said, they love it. But like, I guess because there's a whole thing of like, people being held hostage for their visa and all that sort of thing. But I just wish, look, sorry to get dark in the middle of a comedy show. What I'm trying to say is I understand why they think that in the first place, maybe, but I wish they would kind of look at me and they'd look at her and just think like how easy I would be to escape from if she wanted to get away from me. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not holding her here. She could leave very easily. Like she could wake up any time before noon and just leave. She could put on the extended edition of the Lord of the Rings trilogy and just kind of sit me down in front of it. She's got 9 hours to make her escape. Plenty of time. Well, like 12, I think, the extended ones. She could just wait till we're out in public and then just start, like, find a street that's like a little bit uphill and just start walking away quickly. And I'll be like, wait, where are you going, baby? And I'll just like slowly fall behind. And then like, if she walked past like a McDonald's, I'll just kind of get distracted and walk inside. Oh shit, okay, I was hoping that last one again. That's all right. That's okay. So yeah, that was what it was like being, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so this is basically going to be the last story of the show. This is tie everything together. So I've been back for a while. We'd been split up, just kind of living in New Zealand, and I was in the waiting room of the hospital. I cannot remember what I was in there for, but I was in the waiting room, and a nurse came into the waiting room, and she was like, "Does anybody speak Japanese here?" And I thought, like, "Oh, that's very specific, isn't it?" But I was like, okay, I figured I could probably help out. Maybe somebody was in danger or whatever. So I walked over and she introduced herself and she said she was like, I'm so and so, and I'm a registered nurse. And I always thought it was weird. Like, why do nurses always introduce themselves as registered nurses? Like, is that a big problem in the nursing community? All these like unregistered, just gunslinger nurses, like just these mavericks going around with stolen valor, like. I don't know, it just feels weirdly suspicious. Like, if I set a drink down in front of you and said, here, enjoy your unpoisoned tea, you know what I mean? It's like you're saying something that's good, but you didn't need to mention that. Like, if I went off and I was like, I'm going to go have a completely normal shower. Like, something just up, right? It sounds like you're up to something. So I asked her all these questions, and she was like, look, you're going to help us or not? I'm like, okay, I'll help you. And so then what had actually happened was, there was a Japanese couple that were on holiday, and they had like gone into like early labor. Something had gone wrong. They went into labor like a few months or weeks before it was supposed to, and so they were pretty scared, and they needed somebody to sort of just translate like what was happening and kind of like make them feel at ease kind of thing. And that was how it was put to me from the nurse. And so I thought, oh, yeah, I thought I could probably do that. I feel like I can help that out. And so we get me up in all the scrubs. I looked down and noticed they were active intent 5XL scrubs. A little annoyed at that. And we walk into the maternity ward, and there's this couple here, and so the doctors are grateful to have me there. I'm like, all right, good, you can translate for us. So they said, all right, tell them, don't worry, man. These doctors are very good. Your baby's going to be just fine. And that's a really easy sentence to translate. So I translated it, no problem. And then he goes, right, now tell her we need to check out her cervix to see how dilated she is, to see how far along she is. And I was like, we have reached our first roadblock. I don't know any of these medical terminologies. I don't even know what the correct word for vagina is. The only one I know is manko, like I told you guys before. And so I'm trying to explain this kind of quickly to the doctor, but I'm kind of stumbling over my words. And he goes, look, you just need, like, don't worry about all that now. This baby really could be in trouble, so you just get the point across to them. So I switched to like the most formal Japanese that I could muster, which was like, received pronunciation. And I'm going to tell you what I said to this woman, but in English I said kind of how I said it to her. So I said, oh, madam, frightfully sorry to have to ask you this, but if you would be so kind as to show your cunt to these doctors, so that they might inspect it and see how big it is. For example, like a train tunnel or a donut. So to cut a long story short, we got the baby out, right? I was pretty quickly removed from the situation. I offered to bless the baby, but they didn't want any part of that for some reason.
You went green.
Yeah, I should have been in my paint. That would have been it. So then, I get that shit out. Everything's all good. We're all good. And then so I'm kind of just like, it was quite an intense, childbirth is, probably some of you experienced it. It's quite an intense thing, and it's this whole, experience. So I kind of just needed a minute to like collect myself afterwards. And I went out into the parking lot, and I noticed one of the doctors was like sitting there. He was smoking, which I thought was weird for a doctor, but like, whatever. And so I went down and sat next to him, and he was like, oh yeah, you're the guy from there. So we're just kind of chatting a bit, and he's like, so what actually happened in there? Why did you, well, he said, actually, first off, he said, how come you speak Japanese? And I was like, oh, I lived in Japan for 3 years. And he was like, oh, you fuck any girls over there? I was like, just one. He's like, no, shame. And so he was sort of just chatting back and forth, and he's like, so what happened, why you said something to her and she just burst into tears. What was that all about? So I kind of explained to him like the whole situation of what happened, and he was just like, what? Why would you think that's a good idea to do? And I was like, oh, look, man, we've got a saying where I come from, a little town called Dunsandel. Sometimes you just got to grab the steering wheel, put your foot down and see what happens. And he's like, where did you say you were from? I was like, I'm a citizen of the world. Well, hey guys, that is Ruddzilla. You've been a wonderful audience. I've been Taylor Ruddle. Thank you so much for coming out. Really appreciate it. Let's go through the show.